Number one, pretty simple one. This is asked for a lot. Delirium is something that happens in basically every single map in the game at some point. You're going to add a Delirium fog modifier onto your maps in order to juice them more. Because of that, when you get later into the game, every map is going to have this monochromatic gray, basically Instagram filter thrown over the map. And this game is a visual masterpiece in which the colors are vibrant, etc. And all of that really good art and visual prowessness that people actually like about the game gets removed at a certain point because you have to delirium all of your maps if you're actually playing the game efficiently in the in-game. There it is, a delirium map. You go back and then look at all the colors that are in the game normally. So it's just some way to slide down the delirium, remove the delirium entirely. Probably not remove it entirely. You need something that actually, shows it's delirious going on, but a way to, negate a certain portion of that just grayscale filter would be a nice addition. Number two for me is the Atlas tree, with a notable example of maybe local knowledge. Most of the other nodes on the tree, when you click them, you don't really feel the impact or the weight or whatever you really want to call it of these nodes at all. I mean, you can specialize in strong boxes, maybe you get more strong boxes, more shrines or something like that. Rogue Exiles get more Rogue Exiles. But the tree itself feels very low impact in the in-game, even when you're 40 out of 40 and you're like maxing these other variants. The tree doesn't feel like it actually does very much. Now, the other thing about it is you're not really specializing in anything because all of these other trees, you can fill out all of them. You can do the ones you really want to do, max them out in their entirety, or you can literally just do all of them. So because of that, you're not actually making much of a decision on where you want your points to go. I think the Atlas tree currently is actually a placeholder, but I would like to see your choices actually mattering more on the Atlas tree, or at least when you go into the map to be able to see an example of like, oh yeah, that's probably because I took these Atlas nodes or etc., or at least be able to feel the difference a little bit. I think the Atlas tree is fairly lackluster, which is a bummer because coming from Path of Exile 1, that was one of the most interesting parts of the game. You actually had to choose where you were going to specialize in, for instance. So if all of these were actually connected to the main Atlas tree, you'd have to choose, am I a ritual guy, am I a breach guy, am I an expedition guy? The counter argument to this is there's not enough mechanics in the game, really, where specialization would feel too good because there's only just a handful of them. So I am curious to see going into 0.4 if they add like the Abyss onto the Atlas tree as another one of these, or maybe they bring that tree all together at some point and start making where you can really juice individual mechanics, sort of like they have in Path of Exile 1. I'm okay if they want to do something different than PoE 1. I'm not saying when you copy the whole Atlas tree, you can have kind of your own thing, but I would say that currently at the moment, the Atlas tree definitely feels a bit underwhelming to me. Before we continue on to number 3, a quick word from today's sponsor. And before we jump back in, a quick shout out from today's sponsor, Display, your answer to the gamer's version of decoration. This month is pretty much the best time of the year to grab one because Displate is running their Black Friday sale. This is their biggest sale of the year with up to 46% off. As you know, these aren't basic paper prints, they're actually metal posters. Extra durable, super vibrant, and they really look good no matter where you put them. They also mount using magnets, which means no tools, no holes, and no commitment. If you want to rearrange your setup or update your style, it will just take seconds. And something cool to keep in mind is Displate actually lets you do custom displays now. You can upload your own photos or artwork and have them printed on metal, so it's like the perfect Christmas gift. You can add a family photo or a pet, a favorite memory, anything you really want, but on a premium steel poster. So go check out displate.com/@DM and use code DM to get a little bit of a head start on your holiday shopping. Huge thanks to Displate for being a continual great sponsor of this channel. I much appreciate it. And now we're going back to the video. Number 3 is one I think we can all get behind. I would like to see some meta changes going into 0.4. I would like to see a shakeup. Currently, you're going to have Blood Mage and Deadeye dominate the top 43% just between those two different ascendancies. The reason for that is a lot of people are playing Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod because you get the Roa, you get good damage, pretty easy to actually build out this character, and then Blood Mage scales extremely well with the new lineage support, Jim Bloodletting with like a, HP stacking, doing like your spark type of thing. So those builds right now currently are very meta. Now it is somewhat impossible, I say, and you actually probably don't want it for an ARPG to be perfectly balanced where all of the play percentages are exactly equal, because in that point, if everything performs the same, you don't really have any cool builds that are like people can discover that feel, oh, this one's really strong. You kind of do actually want some builds to be pretty strong. The difference is you don't want the same build to be very strong pretty much every league, and I think at this point people are pretty sick of seeing things like Spark, pretty sick of seeing lightning skills. We had 0.2 very notably, Lightning Spear was absolutely dominating dominating the top playthroughs. So because of that, people are pretty sick of lightning. So I'm hoping going into 0.4, we don't see Druid Lightning being like giga meta. I hope we do see changes, primarily at things like Roa. I would assume we're going to see some Lightning Rod changes and maybe something around like the Blood Lightning Skill Gem, etc. I do think the lineage supports were a good addition in the game. I'm glad they're there. We're actually seeing a lot more builds this league because of the viability of that. I mean, like Karn's Shield Wall with the Fissure one comes to mind. There's the Dre's Undoing, I think is the name of it, with like the Curse Explosion. There's actually a lot of builds that are very good out there that are not like the top 43% of builds. So 0.3 was a success in terms of adding more builds into the game. I would just like to see a continuation of that. And because 0.3 added more passive tree skill points here, I would like to see more additions as well here on the passive skill tree, just to continue to follow up with padding out the skill tree. Obviously, we're going to see them in this section here because Druid is coming to the game and Druid is strength int, and this portion looks way... You can see how there's so much dead space compared to basically anywhere else in the tree. Obviously, we're getting additions here, but I'd like to see the rest of the tree get tuned as well. Some things, for instance, just to give you another example, like the Archons didn't exactly hit very, it didn't exactly hit into the build meta, weren't exactly something that we're seeing people really enjoy, etc. So I would like to see some further tuning to the balance changes of the game. There's more to say about this stuff, like everyone basically taking crit nodes and, crit being OP and all that stuff, but it's just for the point of this video. Number 3, balance changes. Number 4 is further additions to the Atlas itself. I actually think one of the better changes that came in 0.4 was more unique maps coming to the game. For instance, these deadly map bosses that would show up. There was like the Jade Hut, for instance. You got more of these megaliths, more of the, Calandra, Mirror Lake areas. You have a lot more additions in terms of unique things you can actually find along the maps. I actually like this a lot because I feel like the Atlas has been sort of a contentious part of the game. I myself am probably in favor of the exploration of the Infinite Atlas. I think there's something yet there before we completely give up on the concept and just copy all of PoE 1. I think there's something they can actually do with this here. I think the like Jade Isles was kind of nice to have because you can try to get Radika's Flow, etc. So having things you can actually find along the way that are like, oh shit, I have a chance to actually get something good here, or I have a cool boss. I liked this concept they were going with, and it did make the Atlas feel less dead and less lonely on the Atlas. So I would like to see further additions on the Atlas following the same concept they did in 0.3. Number 5 is more bossing, and in my opinion, actual uber bossing. So they did add PoE 2's first uber boss in the game, which is Uber Arbiter. For me, it is kind of just Arbiter with more HP. I would like to actually see Uber bosses in the game that fundamentally have new mechanics. They're still, like Uber Shaper the Shaper. It's still a Shaper fight, but there are additional layers of difficulty added upon it. So for that reason, I really hope that if this is an Atziri addition that we're seeing to the game, the Pinnacle boss fight is both somewhat complex, where it's more than just a punching bag, and that if we have an Uber version of it, it's an actual Uber fight with additional layer mechanics on top of what the base version of that boss fight actually has. Boss fights in Path of Exile, especially Path of Exile 2, are a really good focus point of the game. And Path of Exile 2, unfortunately, the boss fights have been relegated a little bit at this point to just giant DPS test dummies. I mean, how many times have you watched a build guide video and somebody goes and kills Zesh, tier 4, just to show you what the damage is like? They're kind of just big punching bag loot pinatas. You kill them, maybe you get some good loot, maybe you actually don't. Number 5, following up on this conversation, number 5 for me is very simple. Boss chase uniques don't actually feel very good for me at the moment. We've nerfed some of them. For instance, like the Arbiter chestplate has been nerfed to the point where I don't actually see people run it barely at all. Ingenuity has been nerfed. Ho has been nerfed, though you do use Ho in some circumstances. You can see I'm using one right here, for instance. So it does still see some play, but more times than not, when I'm fighting a boss, I often think to myself, there's basically nothing this boss will actually drop that I am remotely interested in outside of like a jewel. You can try to chase a jewel drop, maybe the Oroth flask if you're fighting Oroth, but a boss fighting itself doesn't seem to be like really a mega profitable thing to do. And also, I'm not really excited when I go into a boss fight. So maybe some tuning of the current uniques, additions of Uber bosses, which actually add new chase uniques. They're basically a reason for me to continually want to fight bosses in an attempt to get something that actually matters. think we're on the number 6 here. A buff or a rework to some of the older mechanics, for instance. I know they're probably not going to be reworking current ones while they're trying to add new ones into the game and all of that. But like if you look at Expedition, for instance, with the new addition to the way crafting works in 0.3, I mean, how often are you actually using the Recombinator or the crafts that you actually get here in Expedition? These are very underutilized at the moment. I had an idea that maybe the Recombinator could take, when you have put 2 yellow pieces of gear and you crunch them together, it turns it back into a magic piece, so at least then you can regulate their essence if there's something like that, make that piece actually usable, for instance. So that way you actually have a reason to pick up like tier 5 rares, and then maybe you take a tier 1 staff from the other, tier 1 staff to the other, you still have that 9% chance or whatever it is to slam it together. You're not going to get it every time, but then at least you can use the piece of gear. And right now, I mean, you can get, tier 5 magic pieces, for basically in the item and just like create an item currently at the moment. So I don't really see a reason as to why you would want to even use the Recombinator and make a rare item and then craft onto the rare item. Magic items are more impactful because of the essences and the homogenizing and all of those types of crafting that we currently have in the game. So if the current crafting systems that are already in the game remain intact, then we do need to take a look at some of the other mechanics, and more notably within this one, I would say the Expedition mechanic, as there's only a few mechanics currently in the game. This is one of them, and it doesn't really do anything that I've seen people do outside of farming logbooks to get players to do Oroth, because as I mentioned previously with the uniques chases, Oroth is one of the ones that actually does have a drop you want the Oroth flask. So for that reason, you're farming it just to farm a boss to maybe get the flask drop. And the league mechanic itself, I don't know if I even used a single time to any good effect. All right, for the last one here, I want to talk about ascendancies just for a moment. So currently in the game, there are a few classes that feel pretty hard to recommend in terms of their ascendancy. One of them I'm just going to break down for you real quick here, which is the Sorceress. I'd love to see a third ascendancies for a Sorceress, or maybe looking at the current ascendancies in the game. Now, outside of, I'm going to give you one notable example. People are playing like a Ice Code Chronomancer. You can do Ice Nova. I was watching Woody do a playthrough on this, for instance, Frostbolt, Ice Wall type of build, which does actually look decently interesting. There is almost no reason that I can come to currently to actually play a Sorceress. Let me give you a free 3 reasons here that will kind of back this up. First of all, if you're going to play a Chaos build, you probably are going to do something like Lich. Contagion, if you didn't know it, you're doing ED Contagion build from the beginning. Contagion not only spreads Chaos dots, but it actually spreads curses, which it doesn't tell you in the tooltip. And for that reason, if you're playing a Lich and some of these curse and you kill them, they have a chance to explode doing chaos damage. So you might want to do that if you're doing ED Contagion. A lot of people play Lich, plus Lich is a lot safer, and a lot of people playing ED Contagion do actually do it because it's a safe build as well as smooth and clean clear. And so as hardcore, you also probably want to play Lich. So there's not really a reason to do like any chaos-centered things with the Sorceress itself. So chaos doesn't really work. Now, if we talk Elemento, like I showed you earlier with Path of Building, the Elemento builds, notably like Spark, is actually being played as a Blood Mage currently because Blood Mage does more damage, just basically straight up. I mean, why would you play something like the Sorceress when you can play the Blood Mage, which also elemental damage contributes if you're going to do bleed or if you want to do like Bloodblade, etc. Like, there's a lot of reasons just to play Blood Mage. Literally better, you have better crit and all of that. So Chaos and Elemental, which you think Elemental is really the heartblood of this. And actually what I did is I was doing like a mana stacking. This character's ruined now. I redid the tree here, just trying to mess around with Temporalis. But I was doing a mana stacking build on this character with CI, Eldritch Battery, basically all in on this character. But Mana Stacker, if you want to do a full-on, I'm a mana person, and Stormweaver here, the Ascendancy has mana regen, Arcane Surge, like, okay, I'm going all in on the mana concept, is actually better played on the Huntress, because the rings currently are the main portion of the mana you're going to get. Look at that, 249 max mana, increased mana. You hit that with some mana qualities on the Breach Ring. You get intelligence on there. You're talking, you can get quite a bit of mana. Well, you actually want to play it on a Ritualist from a Huntress, because then you get an extra ring. So you can get even more mana. So the upper echelon of Mana Stacker is actually a Ritualist, not a Sorceress anyway. So that portion of the build doesn't really work. And then maybe what you want to do is, okay, well, maybe I want to actually play around with like the Arcane Surge regeneration portion of it, because I want to do Mind Over Matter, where all of my health is actually a mana pool. Well, it has another problem. Because let's say you go all in with this, you're converting your energy shield to mana, and you're going CI or something, and you're going full on mana itself is your health pool. Well, this actually doesn't work, because if you're Eldritch Battery to give yourself more mana, because that's sort of the build you're doing here, the nodes that convert your energy shield to a stun threshold actually don't work either, because since the change that they did to ES, this is post, not pre-conversion, so you don't actually have any stun threshold. So your stun threshold is based upon your life or your ES converted, and you have 1 life if you're doing CI, or low life even if you're doing Mana Stacker, and then you have no energy shield, so you have no stun threshold. So the inevitable conclusion of doing a mana stacking build basically means you get stunned from literally anything, and you have to do something like try to get the unique jewel, the name's escaping me, to make it where you like can't be stunned, or you have to anoint something weird like steadfast, where you can only be stunned, every 4 seconds or something. It's still pretty annoying. So even that portion of the build is super annoying too. And then why would you even do that when you could play the Blood Mage? Keep your energy shield anyway, and your health is regenerating at crazy rates literally anyway. So the Sorceress gets beat in pretty much every variant of a build that you could think about you want to actually do, is the problem. With the one example, people are playing Chronomancer Ice, but even then I would argue it's still not like, something you're going to play if you're actually trying to have overall the best build or whatnot. So there is almost no reason that I can think of currently, and I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to have a build that works great for them. I'm happy for you, but my point is the Sorceress gets beat out at the upper echelon in all of the things that you would think it's notable for by basically every other ascendancy, including like Huntress, which is just a weird thing to say. So for me, I would like to take a look at some ascendancies, because this isn't the only example. Here's another example. This is Acolyte of Chelua, or Chalupa, as I lovingly call it. This is another class, which I don't want to call a failure, but I would like to see be looked at. So currently, they actually did rework this one in 0.3, and I have yet to find something that somebody is playing that looks like it's a reason to actually play it, or something other than just somebody trying to make it work because they want to try to make it work effectively. Now, there is one really cool thing about this class, which is it has something called Embrace the Darkness, which removes your spirit in exchange for like an additional energy shield. You get like a purple energy shield bar that goes right here instead of spirit. So you effectively get like additional health pool, but you lose some of your capabilities. And spirit skills can be pretty strong. You got like Ghost Shroud, I think it's called, and Wind Dancer, effectively. Like these are pretty good defensive layers, and work really good with energy shield. So you're actually asked to sacrifice quite a bit, but in exchange you get some extra health pool, which originally is pretty cool, because I actually played a hardcore playthrough on this. The darkness made me feel pretty tanky. I definitely felt the loss of damage, but it did make me feel pretty tanky. But going into the late game, it didn't really start to scale. And the reason for this is while you can increase your maximum darkness per chaos res, it is capped up to your cap of chaos res. So you have to increase your maximum chaos res, and then at a certain point, you're just not going to get any more darkness. And as you go layering on into the game, there isn't really any reason to invest into this when you can just choose to get more energy shield. So it kind of gets beat out, not only by energy shield, but by the defensive layers that would go together with energy shield that I would get instead with spirit. Like Ghost Shroud, Wind Dancer, like these other defensive layers would actually just feel better than having, an extra 4,000, effective energy shield at the end game. But it is a cool concept, and I wish what they did was that this was not capped by your current resistance. So if I have 38% chaos res, or let's just say 75%, capped out 75%, it doesn't matter if I have 400% chaos res, it's only calculated by up to the cap. And if it was calculated by uncapped, then I could choose to have investment into chaos res in order to convert the chaos into like my purple energy shield darkness, which would actually kind of fit thematically, because you're converting what would have been your spirit and all of your chaos, etc., into a defensive bubble, which kind of works thematically with the build as well. But you can't really choose to go into there and sacrifice suffixes for chaos, which turn to HP. So it just kind of doesn't work going into the in-game. And the other portions of this, like Void Illusion, I've tried making this one work. It actually doesn't work with Blink either. So I tried doing a Temporalis Blink build where I think, okay, well, it's with Dodge Row, it summons this Void Illusion here, and maybe I can make the Void Illusion build work. But if you actually have Blink on with this here. It just doesn't even create the void illusion. So that ability in and of itself is basically useless. It doesn't really do anything. And if you look at these others here, like this is kind of like picking up remnants with more steps here. The volatility, some people have been able to make work, but it's kind of clunky and weird. So currently, the Acolyte is another ascendancy, which is like, it just feels dead in the water, in which I don't really have a reason to effectively recommend this. So basically all of this to say, I would like to see some of the ascendancies get looked at, as well as we need the third ascendancies for some of these other classes. So going into 0.4, I would love to see the third ascendancy for Sorceress and the third ascendancy for Monk, even if we don't touch these other ones, so that hopefully it feels like there's more of a reason to actually start this class. And people do play Invoker, which is fine. Invoker can work well going into the end game, but core staffs feel really bad in the beginning of the game, which is more of a balance change thing. And then one of the ascendancies just feels like basically a giant meme. So because of that, Monk, Sorceress feel somewhat hard to recommend. Now, as I'm going on, this video is getting quite long, and there's a huge list of these. I'll talk about them on the live stream, but these are just some of the things that come to mind immediately when I think like things I would love to see coming in 0.4, or at least before the full release of the game. If you have the ones that you actually think should be coming to the game like immediately, put them down below. I'll make a list out of them because I'm kind of curious to see which of the ones we actually get check marked off with 0.4. And if you want to see me live, I'm live every day. You can find the link down there in the pinned comment in the description. That's about it. Love you. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Display for sponsoring today's video. It's a pretty good sponsor. I got Display. It's all over my wall back here. That's about it. See you on the next one.